Hey guys, I'm Amber with eTrailer.com. Today we're going to be taking a look at the best racks for e-bikes. So e-bikes are gaining in popularity all the time. You can see I have mine here. It's a Ride One Up 500 series. It's got a step-through frame, it's got fenders, and it weighs about 55 pounds. So today I'm going to be looking at some different bike racks to figure out which is going to work best for this bike, as well as other e-bikes out there. So without further ado, let's get started. So things that you want to look for when you're shopping for a bike rack is how easy it is to load and unload your bike, how well it works with your bike frame style, and any other extra features you might want that make the bike rack easier to use. So first up, we're going to talk about the Thule EasyFold bike rack. So this is a really popular one for e-bikes, mostly because of the ramp and the fact that it has wheels. It's really easy for me to get it from my garage to my hitch and back because it has wheels. E-bike racks are so heavy. The wheels really do help. I don't have to break my back carrying it around. It also folds up very compact, so it's easy to store in a garage, or if you live in an apartment, just inside a closet. Super easy. So another thing that I really like about this rack, it's personal preference, but I really like the folding mechanisms on front of the racks rather than in back. This one's very easy for me to hit with my knee, so I can tilt it away from my vehicle really easily. And another thing, when I tilt it, I can also access the built-in ramp that comes with this rack. And this is designed to let you wheel your heavy bikes onto the rack rather than have to lift them. And there is a longer ramp available for this rack as well. So if your hitch sits about 12 inches or higher off the ground, you might want to consider getting that longer ramp. It just doesn't integrate with the bike rack, so you'll have to store it in the back of your car. A couple small things that I really like about this rack. I really like that Thule seems to put a lot of thought into the little things. So these straps, you can see they bend back out of the way when you're putting the bikes on, which a lot of racks don't do that, and you end up running over your straps and you have to get them out of the way to tighten them down. And it's kind of a pain. So these fold nicely out of the way and just let me roll the bike on and strap it down. And they also come with these nice ratcheting mechanisms, so I can really make sure I'm getting that strap tight. So something else I really like about this ramp, as opposed to the ramp that's included with the Yakima OnRamp, is that it's a little bit wider so my wheels don't get stuck rolling up. Some potential disadvantages with this rack is that if you don't have a step-through bike, it can be kind of difficult to maneuver the arms in the right way to support the bikes. This one's a step-through, the one in back is not, and we had a little bit of trouble finagling the arms to get it through this bike so that it could attach to this bike. And if you have two step-through bikes, this is going to be really easy. You don't only have to worry about it. If you have two bikes with top tubes, it can present a little bit of a problem. So this is one of the few bike racks out there that is actually really easy to use with a step-through bike. So the cool thing about the Saris door county bike rack is that it's basically an elevator for your bikes. You don't have to lift it to load it into your hitch as long as your hitch is low enough to the ground, about 12 inches or so. You can just wheel the bike rack up to the hitch, hit the up button on your elevator and raise it on up to your hitch, slide it right in. So you don't have to lift it, which is really good because this rack is about 63 pounds and super heavy to lift on your own. Another thing that is great about the elevator feature is that you don't have to lift your bikes basically at all as long as your hitch is low enough to the ground. You can just lower the bike rack to the ground, wheel your bikes on, strap them down, and then raise the bike rack back up. So it was definitely the easiest one for me to load my bikes onto. Wasn't too much of a struggle at all. And it's got a lot of other nice little features as well. So I really like the ratcheting straps to tighten around my wheels. And I like that the tilt-away mechanism is at the front of the rack. Because the rack is so heavy, it's kind of difficult to tilt the rack away with the bikes loaded, just very heavy. So just be prepared for that, but it is doable. So the way that this works is by just plugging into a 7-pole on your vehicle. So if you don't have one, this could be a reason that this rack doesn't work for you. You'll have to add one on or look at a different bike rack. The big drawback of this bike rack is definitely the price point. So this is the most expensive rack on our list, and that can be a bit prohibitive if you're not looking to spend a lot of money. If budget is no object, this is definitely one that you want to look into for your bikes. Next, we're going to look at the Kuat NV. So this is a personal favorite of mine. There are a lot of things that I really love about it. One of the things is the clean finish. It just looks really sharp on the back of a car. It's the kind of bike rack that you want to leave on the back of your car because it looks so good. Another thing that I really like is that it comes with a bike repair stand called the Trail Dock. This right here will actually extend. You can load your bike up on it while you're out and make adjustments on the fly. The NV gives us 60 pounds per bike capacity, so it's more than capable of carrying most e-bikes. Another thing that I like is that the lever to tilt the bike rack up and down is super easy to reach. Not all of them are so intuitive, but this one I have no problem reaching over, tilting the rack down or tilting it back up. As for the things that I don't necessarily like about it, this might not be a problem for everybody, but for me, my bike, as you can see, has fenders, and this is a wheel mount bike rack, so it's not the most secure. Another thing that I don't necessarily like is that at 52 pounds, this rack is pretty heavy. It can be a little bit difficult to carry to your car and get on your hitch. So another thing that I don't really like is that this rack is pretty tall. It's kind of difficult to lift a heavy e-bike. It's pretty hard to get the bike up there. Unlike other bike racks, it doesn't come with a ramp. You can buy a ramp separately, but again, it's not included. So the Yakima OnRamp is a really popular option for e-bikes. It has a 66 pound per bike weight capacity. And the thing that makes it really unique is that it has a ramp that lets you wheel your bike onto the rack. So those heavy e-bikes, you don't have to lift them onto the rack. The downside with that I found was that it was really difficult because the ramp was so narrow to actually wheel the bike up the ramp and onto the rack. It tended to squeeze my tire a bit. I don't have very thick tires, so only about 2.5 inches. But even for my tires, it was pretty difficult. It wouldn't work at all for a fat tire bike. If you have a road bike, a road e-bike, it would work really great for those. And it definitely does help if you can wheel it up so you're not killing your back lifting your bike onto your rack. So something I'm not a huge fan of is that the mechanism to tilt this rack is located on the back of the rack. It's kind of personal preference. I prefer the ones that are in the front. They're easily accessible. This one, with 2 bikes loaded, I can't really reach it. So I really have a hard time getting down there. I can't do that and hold the bikes up at the same time. I can do it with 1 bike, but if I'm gonna have 2, it's really difficult for me to do. So the other thing that I really like about this rack, since my bike has fenders, is that it is a frame mount rack instead of a wheel mount rack, so I don't have to worry about the fenders getting in the way. Something else that I really appreciate about the Yakima rack is that it's only about 39 pounds, so it's relatively easy for me to get it from the garage to my hitch. Compared to some of the other bike racks like the Kuat NV, which is 52 pounds, this one is a lot more manageable. So lastly, we're going to talk about the Hollywood Rack Sports Rider bike rack. This one I really like because it has a massive 80 pound per bike capacity. So my bike is 55 pounds without any extra gear loaded. But my partner's bike is 75 pounds without any extra gear loaded, so we definitely need something with a higher capacity to support both of those bikes. Another great thing about this rack is that it's RV rated, so if you do want to take this behind your motorhome, you are going to be able to do that with this rack. One of the downsides about this rack is that it doesn't come with any kind of ramp or mechanism to help you get your bikes onto the rack, so you do just have to rely on lifting it, which can be difficult if your bikes are heavy, which if it's an e-bike, it probably is. One reason that this rack doesn't work particularly well for my bike without an adapter is because mine's a step-through frame. So I did have to get a top tube adapter to put on my bike so that the clamps could close down over it and hold it in place. So something that I'm really not a big fan of with this Hollywood rack is the tilting mechanism to tilt the rack away from the vehicles. This one, I kind of have to get behind the rack and undo a safety pin and then pull another pin and then tilt the rack. And so it's really just more difficult than it really needs to be. It takes a little bit longer than it needs to, and it's not quite as easy as some of the other racks on this list. Final thoughts, each one of the bike racks we took a look at today are going to have certain features and benefits that make it a better fit for certain vehicles, certain bikes, and certain people. For me personally, after trying out all these racks, my favorite is going to be the Thule EasyFold. A couple things that I really like about it, it was relatively easy to load my bikes. It had that wide ramp. It was easy for me to push my bike up onto it, easy for me to hold it in place while I latched everything down. It had the ratcheting straps, it had an easy tilting mechanism, and everything just felt really secure on top of the Thule. And it also gives you a lot of bang for your buck. So Thule is, you know, a very well respected brand in the bike community, but it's not quite reaching those really high prices like this Saris door county. So the Thule for me is going to check all of my boxes. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below, and we'll see you next time.